Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming out today. I'm Brian Kelly, CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan. And pleased to be here for our owner-to-owner event with a very special guest, but also would like to ask Charity to introduce herself as well.
Good evening, friends. I am Charity Dean. I'm the president and CEO of Michigan Black Business Alliance. We serve over 2,000 members across the state. And I am also a proud small business owner, proud and a little stressed small business owner. I own Detroit Rosa, which has 3 locations serving the city of Detroit.
All right, very good. Thank you, Charity. And so thank you for being here. I wanted to first recognize a sponsor that has been supporting SBAM for a long time. And I'm going to ask Amy Saunders to say hello. Very good. From Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan.
Hi. I didn't mean to scare everybody. I didn't mean to scare you. Hi, I'm Amy Saunders. I'm with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. I work in the small business sector. I'm a senior account rep that I work for the 50 and under space for the Southeast region. And I really appreciate you guys all being here today. It's a beautiful day outside. Enjoy the meal, the drinks, the conversations. And I'll turn the phone back over to you. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
All right, we have a very special guest today who has thrown his hat in the ring to be governor of Michigan. His name is Perry Johnson, and we're absolutely delighted that you would be here. And I think that we've got some questions. They're pretty open-ended questions, but I thought maybe we'd start out with just an introduction to the crowd.
Well, I'm very long-winded, so I need to know how long this introduction is. They do mention if you're a small business owner and you're stressed, well, then you know you're one of the normal small business owners. It wouldn't be normal to not be stressed. But that's part of the excitement of life. That's why I love running for governor. Now, it's important to kind of understand. I'll give you a very brief synopsis. What do you want? A 3-minute talk, a 4-minute talk, a 10-minute talk? What do you want?
Let's go with 5.
5 minutes. Okay.
It's fine.
I'm a guy that grew up in a middle-class household, and I probably had a couple of the greatest parents in the world. They didn't have a lot of money, but they loved this country. And I, like most kids, grew up playing every sport under the sun, loved it. I was a Boy Scout, and I became an Eagle Scout, actually. But some of my fondest memories I ever had were when we would go out and we'd go fishing, and we'd catch the perch and eat it right afterwards. And then you have that experience that you have with your dad. And in the final analysis, that's what life is all about. My parents didn't have money to send me to college, but I got through anyway, and I went to the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana. As a sidebar, when I was in elementary school, I went to a Catholic school called St. Mary's. Now that doesn't mean much to most people. I had 27 kids in the class, maybe it was 26. We would have one teacher for all the classes. And my first teacher was Sister Mary Dolores. I had her in, I think, 2nd grade and 8th grade. And I was taught at Riverdale. Now the interesting thing, the reason I bring this up is that when I was in 2nd grade, my goal at that point was to be the first American Pope. Unfortunately, when I got to about 6th or 7th grade, there was Mary Ellen Miller, and I realized I was attracted to women, and this just wasn't going to work. But I bring this up because the Pope went to my school. So I lived about 3 or 4 blocks from the Pope. And so Pope Leo was in my brother's class in school, which is really the most amazing thing in the world. I mean, think about the probability of going to school with the Pope. What are the odds of this ever happening? Well, I ended up in grad school going to Michigan, and I got my first job at Borg Warner. And that was during the 80s when the auto industry was really struggling. I think some of you might remember the Japanese had come in with tremendous quality and were just killing us. They had a better car, they were selling for less money. And when I was working there, I had about $550 million a year that we were doing with Ford, and we were having a quality issue. And so I went to the Lima engine plant, which I had shut down, and I noticed that they had these inspectors at the end of the line that were inspecting the product. And if it wasn't any good, they were either going to rework it or they were going to throw it away. And I said, man, it's a very expensive way to go about anything. This probably is not the right way to go. Not only was it very costly because you had all that labor in, we were never going to get any better. And I thought I knew how to solve the problem. So what I did was I used my background, which is mathematics, and I went to the front of the operation and I started ironing out variation because I taught the people on the line how to make a moving average chart and how to plot the points. And they systematically, with their knowledge and the use of that tool, ironed out variation. And in 4 or 5 years, we had the best quality in the world, and we were producing a car for 40% less money. Now, I wrote a book, ISO 9000, the quality standard. It took off like hotcakes, and I want you to know that I've spent my entire life bringing quality and efficiency to companies. That's all I do. Perry Johnson Registrars and Perry Johnson Laboratory Accreditation now do business in, I say 67 companies, but I guess it's more than 70 now, Terry. Terry runs the registrar, Perry Johnson Registrar. So I have spent my whole life bringing quality and efficiency to companies. That's all I do. I'm considered the guru of the world. And it's a great skill set. Now, I'm not a guy that can cut hair. I am probably the most hopeless guy in the world if you ask me to fix the sink. But when it comes to quality and efficiency, I'm the best guy you're ever going to get, because I am literally the guy that's been doing it all of his life. And I have a very simple goal. I am going to cut all of this stuff out of our government spending because we have so much waste, so much inefficiency. And I want you to keep in mind what has happened in Michigan over the period of the last 7 years. We went from a budget of $49 billion a year to a budget now of $88.1 billion. Now, if we had gone up at the rate of inflation, our overall budget would be $20 billion less. But we set the record for the biggest percent increase of any state in the union, because they love to spend your money and throw it away. And what I want to do is just the opposite, because we are going to eliminate the state income tax. And we're going to do that and improve the quality of the services without raising any taxes. The only way that can be done is to make our operation more efficient. It's that simple. And it could be done. And we're going to reform the property tax. Because if you think about it, we only collect $13.3 billion a year in income taxes. That's all we collect right now. So if we got up at the rate of inflation, not only could we eliminate the income tax, we would have also had an extra $6 or $7 billion left over to reduce property taxes. This is not going to be an impossible task. It's something that can be done. And I want everybody to recognize that every single state in the union, without exception, that has eliminated the income tax has ignited that state. Now, we've had a decreasing population over the last 30 years. Michigan has done everything that's power to discourage business instead of encourage business. You have a right-to-work law which does nothing to encourage business. You have income tax that does nothing to encourage business. We do every single possible thing that we can to try to make things tough, and yet we throw money away like it's going out of style. Who would have ever thought that we'd give $3 billion to a communist firm to try to build a battery factory here in Michigan? I mean, come on. This is like nuts. But I say we give the money back to the people. There was a time when we were the wonder of the world. There was a time when people used to flock to Michigan. There was a time when, for the first time in history, the middle class could lead this great life. And we, for $5 a day, had an opportunity for the middle class to have a car, a home, provide for the kids. In fact, people flocked here from all over the world. The city of Detroit had a population of 2 million, not 665,000 like today. We were considered the Paris of the Midwest. We can do that again. We can ignite this state again. Think of Tennessee. They had the same situation we did. They eliminated the income tax, suddenly they're booming. In fact, where did Ford build their new plant? Not here. They built it in Tennessee. And I say we do that again. Now, I am the perfect person to do this. I spent my entire life bringing quality and efficiency to companies, and I am, nobody can argue, I am the expert in this field. Now, if you really think about it, if you had a loved one and they had to have an operation on their heart, you wouldn't go asking an attorney to work on that heart. If you had somebody who needed to work on your teeth, you wouldn't go and ask a neurosurgeon to work on your teeth, even though he's a brilliant guy. And I frankly wouldn't have a neurosurgeon work on my hair. The bottom line on this is that if you're going to expect somebody to bring quality and efficiency to Michigan so that we can eliminate that income tax, so that we can reform the property tax, you need a guy like me. And I have 3 wonderful boys. They are so dear to me. I have this great wife. I have the most perfect life, and I want my kids to stay here. I don't want my kids moving. We have 550,000 students within a 50-mile radius of Metro Detroit. We lose 40% within the first 5 years. And let's give people a reason to stay. Let's encourage people to come to Michigan. And let's once again make Michigan the greatest state in the Union. And you'll do it when you elect me governor. In the meantime, God bless Michigan, God bless the United States of America, and let's go and do it together.
All right, thank you. So let's talk about your, one way you connect with a lot of people in this audience. You've been a business owner most of your life.
Yes.
And so these are business owners. Give us a window into how that experience will be brought to bear in running and governing, creating a business environment. You talked about taxes. You talked about efficiency. You've got this experience as a business owner. How do you leverage that in order to be the best governor?
Well, it's really, if you want to talk about what you do to make an operation more efficient, it's a combination of knowledge, experience, and art. You know that when you run a company, it's still made up of people, right? So we have to get the people behind us. Now, the way to do this is to start out with a small win. And then you have to have the people behind you coming up with the ideas. Now, they're really your ideas, but you have to have them feel that they're their ideas. And they're much more likely to be enthusiastic about it when they feel that way. Now, I wrote a book, 2 Cents to Save America. Does anyone have a copy of that book? So we should get copies of that book, of the book, to them. But it talks about the basic concept of government in general. You know, it's very interesting when you look at it, because when you're in the government, they all have a budget. And then when they have this budget, 3 months before the end of the year, which is September, they go out of their way to make sure that every penny in that budget is spent. You know, if you've got any money left, you'll have the department say, boy, you better get rid of that money. Now, find something. I don't know what am I going to spend it on? Well, you find something. If you can't find anything, I'll find something for you. And they make sure that every penny is gone every year. Could you imagine running your household like that, or your business, and saying, hey, let's make sure we're broke. I want to make sure we spend every penny we have. I mean, the whole idea is so absurd it's laughable. But they're not incentivized to save, they're incentivized to spend. So in the book I said we changed the entire philosophy in which we're running. Instead of people spending every penny in their budget, they have to cut 2 cents out of every dollar of all discretionary spending. Now, that's minimum. What you do is take a look at each of those projects and you have people that can come in under budget. Now, if you have 10 people in a group, you get one guy buying in that says, okay, yes, I could cut 10%. The other said they can't. Huh? You explain to him, well, he could do it. I guess pretty soon, he may very well be your boss because he can advise you. And then you see if anybody else can fit into that bill. You get other people to buy in. Mandating that it be done often breaks waves. Having somebody that says they can do it first, and then having that person be the key, and telling them, well, maybe they have to go to him for advice, because maybe he is the person that may end up running it because he's going to give you the techniques. Pretty soon other people come up with ways to save money. But it is an art form. Now I can't tell you that I can take somebody into a room and instantaneously tell them how to be this great guy to save money, because I've made so many mistakes along the way learning. Just like a doctor learns along the way, and unfortunately some patients do not end up as well as they should have. It's a learning process. But if you bring somebody out in green trying to do this, who's never done this, it's going to be just about impossible. So we laugh at our politicians because we say, well, they do a lousy job. Well, they've never done this. Take your business, whatever it is. Doesn't matter what your business is. You take somebody out of the street and you just tell them to run it, and they've never run it, it won't be long before that business isn't doing very well. It's a skill set, and we have to recognize it, and as small businessmen, we realize it. Because it took us a while to learn. We all went through it, and that is a learning process. But in this particular case, I'm a guy that's already been through it, and I've handled just about every kind of company on the planet, every kind of organization on the planet. And I've been through it. I have made mistakes in the past, and I learned from them, and now I am literally an expert at what I do. Now, I am donating my time. I'm not asking for a salary. I'm funding this election myself. I'm not beholden to anyone. Nobody's going to get any special favors. I don't have to go and issue a contract to have the streets done at this ridiculous price because they donated $2 million to a PAC. I don't have any of that. I'm here because I want our state to be the greatest state in the union. I want my kids to stay here. And I think we all want to see this entire environment become a great environment for business.
Thank you. So you talk about Michigan being the greatest state in the union.
Well, it's not yet.
I'm just going to
Can't
ask.
say that.
But what do you think our competitive edge is? So how would you describe what we have as a competitive edge, and then how would you use that against our competitors in the country?
Well, we start out by the fact that you start with talent, right? So we have tremendous talent in the state. There aren't many states that really have the educational base we have. Do you realize how many colleges we have? Do you realize that we have so many students that come here? And if we could just retain these students, we would suddenly have all this talent in the world to build upon. But unfortunately, we're losing 40% of them. We can't have that. We also have to recognize we have talent in the sense that indirectly, almost half of our business in Michigan is related to the auto industry. They may not be the auto industry directly, but it's related to the auto industry. And so we can take advantage of the fact that we have that talent. So we have resources that other places don't have. Nobody has more water than we do, fresh water more than any place in the world. So when you take a look at the state, man, water is considered now one of the greatest things you can possibly have. That's why they want to build all these data centers here, right? Because we have incredible resources. But you take a look at the data centers and you see, look at what's going on. Do you know that Jacqueline Benson's husband is now the promoter of these data centers? And his overall commission on these data centers is $70 million. So you talk about making money through politics. I think they're trying to see if they can't break a record. It's hard to believe that Pelosi was able to accumulate $100 million on her salary of what, $165,000 a year? You work that out, you gotta be very frugal. So, we take a look at what's going on. We have to get rid of the graft. We have to get rid of the overall program where you go into politics to get rich. The politicians in the olden days used to go into that business because they donated their time. And in New Hampshire, they do not donate their time. They have the largest legislature in the entire country. They get paid $100 a year. You know, if you are incentivized because you want to make the state better and you're not out there to make a whole lot of money for yourself, it puts you in a much better position.
I'd like to finish up our time together with just a couple of audience questions. I didn't give you a heads up here, but we've got, start right back here. Yeah.
Yes.
So with the cost of health insurance increasing somewhere between 12 and 25% each year, what is it that you will do to lower that or to keep it under control?
Well, we're somewhat limited as to what we can do on our end for the health insurance because so much of that is regulated by the federal government on health insurance. So you have the health insurance itself, unfortunately, is one of the biggest problems we have. Terry and I know because we face it every single year. Do you understand how much it has increased? I do have a program that by Dr. Colander that was presented to me. And it's a program where I might be able to do something with the state of Michigan, but I do need some help from President Trump. And we can do something to actually help the cost of health care and provide better care. Now in the detail, what we do, in his program, they deal with a variety of things. I'll go step one. We start with blood tests. Blood tests tell you almost everything about what's going on in your body. And with blood tests, you can discern whether or not they have to do A, B, C, and D. So you work with that program, and it tells you a tremendous amount, focusing on the people that have the severe problems. Problems that we know cause us to have a greater propensity to have cancer, whether it be pancreatic cancer, whether it be problem with arthritis, problem with our brain and Alzheimer's. There are all sorts of things that could be done with that. And he has a whole treatise on that. But in Michigan, you can't just arbitrarily say, okay, we're not going to provide health care because the health care is provided by the insurance companies. You and I know that if we had competition across state lines, that would help a lot. If we have a situation where people are knowing what they're going to pay, that helps a lot. In my book, 2 Cents to Save America, I give specific examples of what goes on in the healthcare business. You can have somebody go and they want a CAT scan, and they have a CAT scan in one hospital, the cost is $500. That same CAT scan in another hospital, the insurance company's paying $4,000. We have this huge disparity across the board. So if you have people aware of the fact that you have this disparity, so that it's automatically forced disclosure, it does something to bring down the cost. But I'm not going to come here and tell you that I can solve the healthcare crisis here in Michigan as governor of Michigan. I can't. It is more of a federal issue than a state. I can do things to help it, and I have a plan to help it, and I have a plan that will help lower the cost to provide better care, but that does not solve our whole problem here in Michigan with health care.
And that's
across the
regarding
country.
whether it's individual or group corporation.
Yeah, it's you're somewhat limited. It's more of this healthcare issue is more of a federal issue, although we can do some things in the state, and I do have a plan for it. It's about, 100 pages that I do have, but it's not going to solve all the problem. Yes.
Perry, thank you for being here. This is great to get an opportunity to learn about your background and your your incredible organizations that you've built. But question I have is, and I've asked all the candidates this, you know, Michigan was the manufacturing capital of the world 100 years ago. That's when my grandparents came over from Sicily and from Poland. And I guess from your background in their 30 years of building your companies with quality control and ISO 9000, what is it that it's going to take for Michigan to be that manufacturing capital of the world? But really, what from your experience, what is it going to take for you to be our governor and work with the legislature and putting in new laws that will attract the income tax, of eliminating the income tax? What is it that you're going to be able to do as governor to help us attract that talent, to bring manufacturing here and utilize advanced technologies in our manufacturing
It's
facilities?
a non-issue. If you create a better environment for businesses, they move here. I mean, you eliminate the income tax, you will see businesses move. It's just an absolute fact. Lafleur wrote a book called The Wealth of States, and in that he goes through and depicts every single state that eliminated the income tax. There isn't a single exception. Every single one ignited the population, brought businesses to that state, and brings manufacturing to the state. So there is no exception on it. You want to have a better state? Attract people to the state, create a better environment for business. How do you do that? Create a better environment for people in general. You eliminate the income tax. You reform the property tax. You then get rid of this right to work law. All those things make a better environment for business. And if we create a more attractive environment for business, we suddenly have people flocking to the state. This isn't a magic panacea. It solves so many of our problems. Now, the other problem, you talk about healthcare, one of the problems we have is, if you look at Michigan, you'll see because we have a declining population, the percentage of young people we have in the state is small relative to the percentage of older people. So that hurts us in terms of our healthcare costs. So if we attract more younger people to our state, we are going to lower healthcare costs. In fact, if any of you have a business, you realize that if you have a bunch of young people, your cost for healthcare on a rated system is way down. You have a bunch of people that are older, your cost is way up. We start attracting younger people, we get the younger people that are already here to stay here, we're going to have lower healthcare costs too. And that is not magic, it's just a fact. Because younger people don't get sick as much. In fact, I don't think I even went to the doctor when I was in my 20s. Didn't need a doctor, right? So we have a situation where when you're young like that, there's nothing wrong. I used to remember, I used to say to myself, why would we even need health? Why would we need insurance? And this seems silly. Of course, I don't even go to the doctor now. But I'm fortunate, I have nothing wrong with me. So I don't need any medication, I don't really need to go to the doctor. But when you're young, I mean, I didn't need to go I go for a yearly physical, that's it. Okay, but when you're young, you don't need that physical because you're going to live forever. Okay.
Well, Perry, thank you so much for, you want to do one more? We do one more question, yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious if you had a plan for infrastructure, so there's, kind of a growing need for more infrastructure repairs and roads and underground. You have a plan for that?
That can't be. No, absolutely not. She ran on fix the damn roads. So we know they've got to be perfect by now. 7 years later. Do you really think that our roads are any better now than they are when she took over? Now, here's what's so funny. We end up with a situation where we go and we have these roads redone every 2 years. Now, where I live, it seems like it's always under construction. It reminds me of Chicago, really. Because I grew up in Chicago, and if anybody's ever been there, you realize it's always under construction. Never stops. And they have these arrangements to make sure that the roads constantly need repair. It's like 4 stops to lessons every 2 years. Well, there are all sorts of products we can use that are going to enable the roads to last longer. Now, the initial cost for that road is higher, but our biggest component of cost is labor. So if you use a little bit more expensive material and the roads are going to last 3 times as long, it's worth paying the extra 15 or 20% for those materials. So when you go through a bid, you do not decide that bid on the basis of how much money they donated to my campaign. You don't decide the bid on whether or not this is the lowest bid. It's a combination of quality and cost. And so you have to take a look, okay, over a period of 10 years, what is the real cost of this road per year? And if we do that, we won't have all these repairs being made every 2 years. And where I live, I don't know where it is, wherever I go in the state here, it seems the roads just get worse and worse. So I don't know that they're any better now than they were when Gretchen took over. That is my opinion. I have not done a study on every yard of road, but I've got something so bad. I was in, let me tell you what happened. About 15 years ago, I was, maybe it's 18, I lose track of time. I'm driving my Harley at night, and it's 55, 60 miles an hour, and I hit this big chuck hole, and Terry knows, I hit this, well, you can't even see it. It's this deep, it's dark at night, and I go flying into the air. So I'm flying into the air, and thank goodness, I happened to be in gymnastics when I was a little kid, so I was able to cartwheel all the way through when I had a helmet on, and then I land on this and then roll. The bike ends up completely totaled, okay? And I end up virtually unscathed, okay? Little scar here, maybe I've got arthritis in my left thumb, but aside from that, and of course I land on my shoulder, so a little scar here, but other than that, I was fine. I go walking off, and the people are looking and say, wow, it's amazing. One person wondered if I was a stuntman. So the thing is, when you have roads that are that bad, it's actually dangerous. So it's not only bad for us in terms of convenience, it's bad for us in terms of cost, and it's bad for us in terms of safety. So.
Well, I don't know how you're going to top that, but I was going to have you give your final remarks here to the group before we mingle for the rest of our time.
All I can say is that I obviously love life, love my family, love Michigan, and by the way, I actually love campaigning, so I'm enjoying it. I think we have an opportunity to make this state truly the greatest state in the union, all kidding aside. This is something where we have a very unusual situation where I have a skill set that very few people have. But it's a skill set that is needed at this time, and sometimes there is almost divine intervention when you have a skill set that comes in and it magically can do things that need to be done. And let's face it, the government has gone nuts. You see what happened in Minnesota and all the graft you had there. We don't know what's going on in Michigan exactly because we haven't studied it. But we did have a little sidebar because we noticed that on the website, I think there were 77 names of people in Dearborn that were getting money for daycare and transportation. And so we asked about these 77, and they had been right up there on the website. And then suddenly the next day, they're not there anymore. Now, we don't know that there's corruption. We don't know what's going on, but we do know that the 77 names that were listed, when we asked about them afterwards, disappeared. So when you get into it, you have to say, who would you rather have spend your money, you or the government? Now, if you want to keep your money, I say vote for me. And my basic theme is I will put roughly $4,747 in every family's pocket every year. 47, almost $5,000 a year. And I say, keep your money and live your dreams.